All right, now, let's get into the story right now because Jim Trotter had a lot to get off his chest as well. Y'all catch that transition? It's your boy. All right, so he talks about the uncertain future of sports journalism and leaving the NFL network and media. So we know who he is. And this past spring, his contract wasn't renewed by NFL Network. And Trotter gained a lot of attention, national attention, for questioning Roger Goodell, the Godfather, about the league's lack of minority hiring both on the field and at NFL media. That was the and that a lot of people didn't catch wind of. So Trotter has said that he believes Goodell played a role in his contract not being renewed. Quote, look, I was focused on things that I felt were important. I was focused on things that the NFL said were important to it. And somewhere along the line, along the way, there was a disconnect. The only thing I know is that in November, they said they expected to bring me back. There was no reason to think I wouldn't be brought back. It was either the last week in February, the first week in March. I was told that wasn't necessarily the case anymore. Only they can speak to why they took the actions that they did. All right, so we caught that when that happened in real time. Now, we didn't know that they were going to bring him back or not. We just heard like, whoa, Jim Trotter's not coming back? Wow, that's interesting, especially when you know that he talks a lot in alignment of what is going on with the hiring process with minorities. And then they're going to let a minority go who is esteemed. Like, it's not like he's a bad reporter. People don't like him, etc. But hey, let's talk a little more about it. So he wrote a column recently about the diversity in the XFL, if you guys are watching, as opposed to the NFL. We know we watching that. An example of something he couldn't have done at his previous job. He said, I would probably guess that every story and situation is unique, but I would say there's a strong likelihood I could not have written it in that way. If the NFL holds itself up to be about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we're not seeing that on the field, and yet we are seeing it in the XFL, to me, that's news. And the fact that coaches feel like they have to leave the NFL to get these type of opportunities also is reflective of a problem in the NFL. For me, it's about shining a light where I see an issue. Pure journalist right here, huh? Sound like a purist, right? He just like, I'm going to the story. I don't give a damn of the consequences or what's the resistance. All right, so his expectations when he joined NFL media. This is pretty interesting, y'all. We're gonna fly through this. Before leaving the ESPN, I told them they knew. When I interviewed for the job, I said to them, let's not waste each other's time. If our visions don't align, that's okay. You go your way, I'll go mine. Damn, he flowing up in there. He Pac over there rhyming. I told them there were three things I wanted to focus on. Number one was social activism or player activism. Number two, I wanted to humanize the players. Number three, I wanted to focus on issues and trends within the league. I told them, if that's something you're interested in, great, we can proceed. If not, there's no need for us to waste each other's time. They told me those were things they were interested in. Now, here's the pushback on that, even though all of that sounds amazing. They're running a network. NFL Network is a little different in terms of the entertainment scope. It's supposed to lean a little heavier on the exposure and educational side, right? Like you're exposing us to training camp. You're exposing us to behind the scenes. You have all the access of the NFL, right? Because you are the NFL. And at the same time, we're supposed to learn from that. Not necessarily see debate shows and stuff like that on the NFL Network, right? But they still do lean into entertainment. So his three demands sounded like they were a little even more heavy towards education than maybe even the NFL Network was raising their hand for. I don't know. Here's a question. If you could have a conversation with Goodell about improving the number of minority coaches, what kind of questions would you ask? As far as minority coaches, look, the league office has done pretty much all it can as it relates to trying to level the playing field. That's interesting. The problem here is ownership. Till owners decide that they want black faces to be the face of their franchises, there's not much else the league office can do. Man, I swear I've said that. I swear I've thought that in the terms of like, yo, the NFL is really on a try mission to get some diversity on the sidelines. And I'm not talking about the players who ain't playing. And I was like, dog, people don't get that. But look, I also talked to players. I was a player rep. And players will go on air and complain about some of the resources we didn't have. And I literally was like, here's the hotline. Here's the number. Here's the email to exactly what you said we don't have, but you haven't taken the time to figure that out. So it's just interesting. Sometimes there's a huge divide between what's really happening and what is really being said. And I don't like when that gets out. So that was interesting by him. Here's another one. The NFL offering teams compensatory draft picks if they lose a minority staff member to a head coach or general manager job. Is that a good idea? I think it's shameful that you have to incentivize the hiring of minority coaches. If you were to do blind resumes with minority coaches and the non-minority coaches and ask people who are the most qualified in certain situations, think you would find they would choose the resumes of a minority coach. But unfortunately, jobs aren't going to these individuals. Whoa, I love that. It is shameful that you got to be like, I give you a popsicle if you hire you a black coach. Like, oh, it's just like, look, I don't have anything in common with these coaches that are trying to go out there except the same skin color, right? The same ethnicity, background, whatever. But I don't have anything in common with them. But I would say this, it's kind of sad, like it would feel like, dog, they taking my kind, and the only way that they're going to accept it on the sidelines as a head coach in the face is if you give them a popsicle in addition to the opportunity. That does feel sad. I'm with Jim Trotter on that. Here's something. This was dope. Does this mean that nothing more can be done to change the minds of owners? I'm not in the business of changing hearts and minds. All I ask is that you hire the most qualified person. Round of applause. Period. And it's not that hard to see who's the most qualified are in certain situations. As I wrote, Brandon Staley, that's the coach of my Chargers, so this might hurt. Got a head coaching job 5 years after leaving a small college football program and only 1 year of coordinating experience. Interesting. Eric Bieniemy, been the offensive coordinator for a team that has gone to 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls, has an MVP quarterback and a Super Bowl MVP quarterback. So how is it that he can't get a job? Wow. Now, not going into the weeds of that one, on high level paper, topic, sentence, summary, yeah, he has a tremendous point. On the declining state of sports journalism, it's disappointing. There are a lot of talented people who are out of work through no fault of their own. I pray that they land on their feet and they're in better situations going forward. It's sad, but it's reflective of where the industry is going. Let's talk about that. Where the industry is going. Just went to a conference where all those VCs and all of those executives and tech gurus were saying, we're all going to a place where everyone is a creator and everything is a channel. Like kind of how YouTube is, but deluxe. To the point where all you guys are creators. Do you have Instagram? Do you have followers? Do you have followers that are not just close family and friends? You are now a creator. Even though you think, all right, and is it public? You're like sharing your world. Look at little Betsy finally hit the somersault in gymnastics. And somebody else likes it that you don't know. Welcome to the world. And you are part of this process where everything as we know it, traditionally linear, is being fractured. So now, bigger and bigger and bigger names are going to be creators and creators. Now, ain't nobody going to be bigger than a Mr. Beast, but we all on pursuit to try and be that dude. All right, so, man, this is interesting. Do you think the NFL is going through all the measures necessary and has done enough to address the diversity, equality, and inclusion? Do you think Trotter's contract not getting renewed was unfair and Goodell's fault? Let me just say this about this whole situation in summation. That nothing's going to be perfect, but we all see some of the real huge obstacles and issues when it comes to what we were just talking about with college athletes not getting paid. And then a lot of times it leans into a racial conversation, sometimes necessarily. And then the same thing on the sidelines with the NFL. However, let's be careful. Because there is not equality on that football field either. So that's when I always push back. Like, y'all want equality where? On the field, it ain't that. Whether you want to say racially, it's not that. 50-some% of the players are black, 70-some% of color, minority, not equal. On the sidelines, a whole different animal, right? Well, how many head coaches are black now? 2? I don't know. Crazy, right? But it's not equal on the field, but that's okay. It's not equal on the sideline, that's not okay. Now, we got to make those conversations equal, right? Make them have the same energy.